Hey guys, it's Nick with Smith Force Strength and Conditioning. Today we're gonna go over ways to mobilize your ankle to improve your plantar flexion. So in most cases, you guys have probably heard, like I've mentioned in my previous videos, dorsiflexion is really important. So being able to bring your toes to your ankles, up to your shin, is very functional for just about every task. Now, sometimes plantar flexion kind of falls under the radar a little bit, and everybody's like, oh, dorsiflexion, dorsiflexion, dorsiflexion. And plantar flexion is the ability for you to be able to point your toe like down. You guys can see it with like ballet dancers or gymnasts. They have a lot of plantar flexion range of motion, and in most of your cases this probably won't necessarily be helpful. You may not be stiff, but for those who have had or chronic ankle sprains, or you've broken your leg in the past, you have some hardware in there, and just something still feels kind of stiff, or if you just feel like you have stiff ankles in general, this is an exercise or a tool that you guys can use to kind of help mobilize that a little bit more. So I wanted to show you guys a couple different movements that you can do to kind of, one, help self-mobilize the joint. That's still that talocrural joint that we had mentioned in the previous video, and then also just another stretch that you guys can kind of get into that works a couple different things, but you can focus on the plantar flexion. So the first one I want to start with is a mobilization. This is something you can do before you go on your runs, before you go on your walks. Pretty easy, something all you need is to be able to prop up your leg on your bed, your couch. If you got any type of table surface, you can do that. And it looks something like this. So as mentioned before, all you need is a table. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna prop my right leg up on this table, like so. And my hand, the web space in my hand is gonna go basically just above your heel bone. So right where the Achilles tendon is, okay? And the force that I'm gonna push is kind of down towards the floor. Now, kind of the opposite of what we were talking about before with dorsiflexion. To engage in improving plantar flexion, you want to actually press the talocrural joint anteriorly. So anteriorly would actually be down in this case. And so by pressing here, you're kind of distracting the joint, and then you can actually point your toe, which is adding to that plantar flexion. So this may feel a little weird because you can feel your tendons kind of shifting on the table, but this will help restore that plantar flexion. And you can do these for about 30 to 45 repetitions. Reassess your symptoms, and you can carry on about your day. Now that option for the stretch is kind of more of a mobilization. So if you can't sustain the position for a long period of stretch, that's a way to kind of hit the end range and really, enhance that plantar flexion essentially. So that's something you can kind of do quick and easy on the go. If you got low top shoes, you can leave your shoes on. You don't even have to do it with your socks or barefoot. You can, it doesn't matter. But I feel like that's a really good, quick and easy, hey, I'm gonna warm up that plantar flexion and I'm gonna go for my run and kind of see how it feels. The other option is more of a sustained stretch. Similar to what we talked about with the dorsiflexion, where you're holding it for more of like a stretch period, and all you need to do is be able to get onto your hands and knees in that quadruped position. So quadruped meaning all hands, both hands and both knees. So I'm going to start off by getting into the quadruped position where I'm going to be on my hands and knees, and then all I'm going to do is I'm actually going to point my toes back away from me, and I'm going to sit my butt back on my heels. So by doing that, you can kind of grade how much of a stretch you can actually endure. Obviously, the further you go back, the more intense the stretch is. Depending on how stiff your ankles are, you might feel a little bit of a pull in the actual muscles or the tendons in the front of the ankle, or if it's kind of stiff in the actual joint, you might feel it a little bit more towards the Achilles tendon. So gradually modulate how far you actually go. It shouldn't be sharp, it should just feel like a good stretch. So it's going to look something like this. Toes are pointed away from me, and essentially all I'm doing is sitting my butt back on my heels. So the more I sit back this way, gets me more of a stretch. I'm putting more weight through it. So I can feel this is pretty wound up. You guys might also feel this in your quads. That might be your limiting factor, depending on how much knee range of motion you have. So there might be some other contributing factors that might limit this, but this is a good way to kind of get some stretching through that and enhance your plantar flexion. Like I said before, most stretches holding for 30 to 45 seconds is sufficient. Try it a couple different times. Do it as needed, or do it, you know, once in the morning, once at night, basically whenever it benefits you and when you can get that time in. The more stretch, the more availability you're gonna have that range of motion, and hopefully enhance your sports or whatever activities you need to do at work, whatever it may be. But until then, see you next time. Thanks for watching.